Greetings. The What It Takes Radio Company presents a program just for you. This is a challenging day, a very difficult day. So we're coming to you with interesting ideas, and we are asking the very important question: what happened? The Super Bowl. The victory has become a terrible tragedy. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and yes, indeed, isn't it a tragedy? From a victory to tragedy, grieving Kansas City. Yes, the news has been exploding since yesterday evening, and of course, now that we are into Thursday morning and into the day, the news went from bad to worse, and who knows where it will go next. Um, Obviously, I'm not here to rail on the politics or whatever else is about that. It just simply is a point that where we can look now is what is happening to our life, and is there anything that we can do about it to make 24, which unfortunately has gotten off to a very bad start, to make things better in some way? Because that's what Interesting Ideas is all about. And starting tomorrow, hopefully, we will also have another logo up there, and it will be one that simply says the Transformation Project. It's time for some transformations. Some significant changes have to happen in our country, in our society, maybe even in our own personal lives. And if you'll give me just a few minutes on this Thursday, I don't want to rant and rave, but perhaps just share a few ideas that might help us be better entrepreneurs and perhaps better at making a living. And of course, perhaps in also making life more worthwhile. I'm Stan Houston. The program is Interesting Ideas, and it begins right now. Well, I was going to try and find the excerpt, and it was easy to find. Uh, there's a song that goes back to my youth, and many of you perhaps even know about it. It was Fats Domino. And do you know what the song was? Well, many of you do. It was a fun song, Going to Kansas City. There's some pretty little women there, and I'm going to find me one. It was kind of a nice little homage to Kansas City, kind of the heartland of America. Not New York City, not LA, but if you want to find out the real deal, Fats would say, and where they're obviously nice ladies and nice life and good things, what do? You go to Kansas City. And of course, being very much right in the heart of flyover country, Kansas City, which I said is in Missouri. And Missouri is the show 'em state, the home of Harry Truman, certainly one of the no BS presidents that we've ever had. A modest, hardworking, straight talking kind of guy. Kansas City had some good things going for it. And of course, the young man who has just come out of the football season there seems to be, a man from the best of America. Mr. Mahoney's. Yeah, the young quarterback. He put on, as I oftentimes say, and I said it before, it wasn't a good game at all. The performance wasn't great. However, toward the end, as one of my friends came back and said, Stan, it was a great game. Well, at least the last quarter was great. And we saw people perform well. And they won. And of course, it was going to be a great celebration. And it was a great celebration. But here we have this scene now where We now have discovered that the one person who died, a significant lady in my business, she's a disc jockey, but really not the old-fashioned disc jockey. She's much more modern and more progressive and working for a nonprofit commercial radio station, well known, nice, bright, good-looking lady with 2 children, good family, and lots of talent and community service, and she's shot in the abdomen and she dies. 6 or 7 children, uh, maybe more, were hurt. Who knows what's going to happen to them? Obviously, their lives are going to be significantly changed no matter what. If they survive, uh, that kind of trauma hangs on for years, maybe forever. And obviously, just because you recover from a shooting doesn't mean you ever fully recover. I mean, that means you didn't die. Um, could mean that there's all kinds of health issues and bodily issues and physical issues and emotional and mental issues that are going to plague you. So, 2 or 3 clowns or whatever, uh, evil people, for some reason, decided to ruin the celebration with their own self absorption, their self greed, their own anger, and they stepped forward and started hurting people. Um, there was going to be no benefit to them, but they did it anyhow. Somehow they wanted to hurt people. Now, we're not going to talk about gun control. Please keep in mind, I know how everybody feels, but you have to understand the firearms market in the world. Firearms are one of the hottest commodity in the marketplace of the world. That's right. And whether you can buy it at the store or buy it legally or whatever has nothing to do with the fact that if you want it, you can get it, no matter what the law or what the gun control thing is. The world is full of firearms, and anyone who wants one can get one, and any law that tries to limit it in any way is going to be reasonably ineffective. Now, obviously, you might in some way stop the immediate person in anger who simply wants to go out and act on their anger. But if somebody is really possessed with a desire to do evil and to do bad things, for the most part, they're going to find a way. And following the news about that, the featuring is today that carjacking in Washington, D.C., the capital, the capital, you know, the capital of the United States of America, carjacking is at an all-time high. And there was an interview with a gentleman, and I felt, oh, what sadness. His son, his was carjacked. The guy gave him the keys to the car, and the guy shot him anyhow, and he died. That's the world we live in. From a celebration of victory on Sunday and Monday, we're into Tuesday and Wednesday, and we're back looking at the world that is around us and wondering, what can we do? Well, the news cycle will pass, and we'll pass on to something else. We'll talk about the politics. We'll talk about all kinds of other things. But eventually, this will pass. And unfortunately, the people who were hurt badly will have the rest of their lives to deal with that tragedy. It was the victory that led to the tragedy. Boy, who can help us figure it out? I'm just going to leave it at that point, and then I'm going to kind of flip into maybe just a little bit of my own responsiveness to it, and maybe you can join me in that, because I would love to hear, again, what can we do to truly make the world and the place we live in just a little bit better starting now? I'm Stan Houston. Program is Interesting Ideas. We'll be back. Really, the world begins with you. I came across a story today, and it's about a baseball player, which I didn't know. But there's a story about him, and I think I'm going to save it for another time. Uh, I never heard of him. I didn't know him. I didn't. I never heard of him. He actually played for the Kansas City Royals at one time, and it turns out he was a big league ball player, but he was kind of mediocre, as he says. Uh, I think as a pitcher, he won 82 games, and he lost 83 in his career, and his ERA was over 4. Now, by any standard in the big leagues, that's that's average, maybe even less than average. However, it simply says that the man had an injury, and the team owed him $12 million for the year, even though he couldn't play. And he retired and said, no, yes, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get paid for not playing. I'm not going to do that. Maybe some of you know the story. Maybe now you're curious enough to look it up yourself, but perhaps we'll talk about it some other time. What has happened to us, and particularly among our younger generation? It'll be interesting to find out who these particular people are who've created this great tragedy. But the point was that many of the carjackings are committed by young men. What has happened? And I think what we're going to discover is that we truly have, and this is something I would very much like to be a part of, we certainly have a crisis in young manhood today. It used to be that we really had, and in case you don't know, most cultures have always had, and many still to do, that we truly have rites of initiation in which we are very, very intentional about taking boys and taking them through a process of seeking to make them responsible young men. And it wasn't just the family's responsibility to do that, which of course it is. It's the father's responsibility to do that primarily. And of course, with a lack of fathers, guess what happens? Uh, you have a lack of fathering, which means that young men are not going to be well fathered, and they may not be nurtured and confronted and initiated into manhood. So that we have to be very, very aware of, and see if there's something we can change in the way we are doing. Like I said, the family, of course, but society had ways of making sure, as best they could, in even the Native American cultures, the vision quest, in which the young men were brought into the adult or warrior class, meant to defend, their tribe, their people, um, uh, was dangerous. I mean, when you went on the vision quest, it wasn't a good time. It was probably going to be a pretty significant time, and it could very well be a dangerous time, and sometimes it was. So at least that might be the conversation we need to have and see where it goes. I also think that, you and I have to deal with what I'm going to talk about and what my good friend Joe Pine is really writing about. And how can we have a real transformation in our lives, in our organizations, in our cultures? Not managing change, not having change culture. I mean, is it possible to actually change the very forms of who we are and what we do. Not just grow up, not just grow older, not just change, not just be better, but is it possible to have true transformation? What is a transformation? What does it look like in our lives? What would it be in an organization? What would it be in a community? What would it take? Um, can we bring Kansas City back? A number of our major cities have lost it. They've lost the form they had that, in some cases, encouraged greatness and commerce and responsibility and loyalty. And we've kind of forgotten some of those things and not done some of those things. So that's just the point I'm asking you to think about, as I'm going to think about. What can we begin to do? Not just to have a better life right now. That's a given. We want to do that. Can we be somewhat the people who have, you might say, have some particular power, some peculiar people who have some particular power that they can truly be not change agents, but perhaps people who live and teach and do transformation. Just a thought on this rather difficult day. All the best and blessings to you. Let's keep in touch. Listen whenever you can. I would love to hear from you. Stan Houston at gmail.com. StanHouston at gmail.com. And let's keep in touch. Take care. Until next time. Bye for now.